Season 1. So just a quick introduction, Saascast is a live video podcast that we host probably on a monthly basis now, and we invite professional marketers, founders, CEOs to talk about SaaS and how to grow SaaS business, right? And today I'm with Shubham, head of growth at Keymetrics.
Exactly.
So quick introduction. Oh, guys, yes. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me all right. Tell me where you're typing from, and yeah, that's it. While people are typing and telling where they're typing from, maybe you can quick introduction on what is Keymetrics and what is PM2, since it's quite related,
right?
And what you do.
Yeah. So yes, Keymetrics and PM2. We are a monitoring solution for servers for Node.js applications. So just to restate a little bit, what is Node.js? Node.js is a programming language that's widely used today. And what we help do with Keymetrics is monitor them. Means that we help people know what's the health status of the applications. They can know when something bad happens. They can have alert, etc. Mm-hmm. And basically, we help them like optimize their application as well, more than reacting only to anything bad that is happening. And more than that, Keymetrics is relying on an open source solution, which is called PM2, that we created, mm-hmm. and we are still maintaining it. And PM2 is kind of the small layer that help people launch their Node.js apps. Okay. So it is today widely used in the Node.js space. So everyone, basically, when they want to go in production with their Node.js application, they will use PM2. And then they will eventually monitor their app with Keymetrics.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, cool.
This is basically the product.
Awesome. And so really focus on developers, Node.js developers specifically?
Yes. Obviously, you can monitor apps like Python or like Bash script, etc. with PM2 and Keymetrics as well. But if you want 100% of the features, you are using Node.js. So yeah, our community and users are widely Node.js users.
All right, awesome. Okay, cool. So for let's just start with something really basic, something like really top of the funnel, since it's a growth talk, so pretty relevant. What is a business developer business? Is this something related to? Is it different from running a B2D Saas classic business, or is it like a sub-segment of B2B? What are the specificities of B2B business developer?
So I'll definitely go with the second one. It is definitely a subcategory of B2B business, because obviously if you are targeting developers, they are eventually building something that mm-hmm. helps a business. Okay, it could be something really personal. You could have a small project just running, but if you are at a level where you want to monitor it because it's a critical system, etc., you mm-hmm. are most likely a business. So yeah, let's see what's basically different. I would say it's more in terms of profile mm-hmm. of the people who are using your product, and what their needs are, the way they adopt your mm-hmm. product, the way they use it, the way they want to be informed about the product. I think it's a little bit different. I think it's really related to the developer culture, yeah. which is different, which is where you need to provide content to let them learn by themselves and not pushing. And a developer don't like to be pushed. So you need to just give them everything to be totally autonomous about what they do.
That's really interesting. So developers are. It's something that you have to think backward, right? Mm-hmm. When you, for example, for Livestorm or for any B2B MarTech, company, usually what you do is when you get new customers or new user, you push them through a funnel. You push CTAs all the time. So what you're saying is when you have developers coming in your funnel, you have to let them live their own life and kind of, drive them to the content you want them to use to consume, like a quick start guide, I guess, or documentation. What's the recommendations that you could give to push them through the funnel without actually pushing them?
Yeah, so you're totally right. Like you have to show them the path mm-hmm. and not really just like push them. So the way is to show them the path. So definitely, if you're talking only on a growth ways, you have your funnel and you have your different steps to be accomplished. And let's say you have a users that you consider mature after accomplishing a certain amount of steps. First, you need to make sure on your side that the step that you're qualifying as that will qualify your user being really mature are fulfilling and giving value to him, depending on what he's looking for. So, for instance, if you are solving a problem and you need to give this developer a tool to solve his problem, you need to give him enough documentation about first letting him know that this is the problem he needs to resolve. So it means he will be identified and he will think that we are talking to him. Secondly, you will show him the tool, show him the way to use it, and then you will give him the tool. And give him then a reference to refer if he has some question about what you give him, so that he can go back and forth with this reference and be totally autonomous on it.
All right, and how do you identify that problem? Do you ask, proactively to the developer, or is that some kind of, for example, how do you guys spot different problems across the different kind of developers that you have?
So I think it's really related to your tool. Like today, we are helping people. Like if you're talking features, we are helping people monitoring, like basic monitoring, seeing the CPU level, the memory levels of their application, first thing. Then we help them spot their errors, means we help them debug about it. So when something bad happened on their application, they will be notified and they are able to see where the problem happened. And then we help them, for example, optimize, which is a third set of features. Like everything is good, and we'll just give them tools to make their application better. So once we have specified the 3 different levels of features, we made them because we spotted some problems in the usage. So if you did your job well in spotting the problem and replying by features, you know which problem you're actually solving.
All right. And I think what I was going for is, okay, so let's talk about sales. Typically, developers, it's not just, Node.js developer alone in the garage doing, their own app. It could be a CTO, it could be someone in an IT department in a large company, right? And all those profiles are pretty different from each other.
Right.
Each one has one main, obviously they have one problem, monitoring Node.js app, but each of them will have a specific pain points they want to address in priority, or maybe something that, that will ring a bell, right? An IT director in a large company will not have the same, the same problems in general than a CTO in your startup. And how do you address that? Do you have like a sales team that will take care only of that segment? Do you have marketing channels for each of them? How do you talk to such a variety of profiles?
Right. So you're totally right. The needs of these people that are at different level of a different part of the organization will have different needs. So that's totally clear. But obviously, as in any product and in any company, you will define some personas, and these personas are for us are, for example, a developer who is just probably a developer at a level of who is the user of PM2. He's the one who will beneficiate directly from the technical features. He's the first one. Secondly, we have, for example, the project manager who just want to see what is going on in general, but who probably do not need to know how many times the application crashes, for example. Third one would be, the C-level, the one who just need to, let's say, cut some cost on, his support level on the usage of his application. And he knows if his team, these 2 different personas, for example, are more efficient in solving the problem and optimizing them, you'll be more able to help him achieve his goal, so eventually to sell him. Obviously, we have these, let's say, to simplify these 3 personas. The first one that we are addressing really massively is the developer, because we are first a developer tool, and obviously, and today we can see it in all the products that are made for developers. If you're able to convince developers, they will become kind of your ambassadors. And developers love working with their own tools. They do not want to, they want to learn new stuff, but only when they want to. And they do not like, for example, having a project manager saying like, hey, you will do this in X or Y. And so that's why if you're able to convince the developer and make him your ambassador, you kind of won 50% of the game on this side. So then it's all about understanding the organization because he will be your ambassador, and how will you help him convince the other.
All right. So basically, first step is knowing who is the decision maker and who is being influenced by. Right. I think that's something that is actually pretty common to a lot of B2B startups. Then you will have to find a champion. So in your case, it will be a developer.
Right.
And what is interesting about a developer is, as you said, they're really, once they love a product, they are, basically your champion for life. They will be supporting it. You have a lot of referral potential.
Right. Totally.
Is this something that comes out of their organization? That, for example, let's say I have convinced a developer that PM2 is a great tool, great monitoring solution. They have convinced their C-level executives. Now, are those people going to, spread the word around? And what are they going to go out and actually speak about your product outside of your organization?
I think this is obviously, in the framework you have at the end, like the referral thing, which is the best thing that could happen to you. And it's really true in the developer communities, because I think that I will trust more something that my friend is using if he actually told something good about it. So I will definitely give it a try, because he's benefiting from him. So this is really good, and it's really true in the developer communities. Like they talk to each other about that. If I see, for example, let's say on a Stack Overflow question that a product it's coded in the first place, I will go for this one. If I see that a open source product has a certain amount of stars on GitHub, which is the community platform for developers, I will go for it, because I know it is actually referred by people that are like me, so I'll be more likely to use it. So yes, and this is true on the good side, and which is really beneficial when you have a product, and this is really true as well on the bad side. So if you have, let's say, a bad buzz on I would state as a bad buzz in the general world on your product. If something goes bad, it goes really bad, because in the developer communities, like there is, it's the game. There are people that are like trolls, or they would just say bad things about your stuff. So if it became really bad, if you're trying to kind of screw them over something really marketing wise or something, you could have a really, really bad reputation as well. So you have to deal with it. So it's true in the good sense and the bad sense. You better take the good one.
So I guess it's a binary target.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
And also there's one thing. If you have lost someone, and if he has a bad kind of view of yourself, of your product, it's really hard to take him back. So you better do not do the bad thing. So you better like stay really, really transparent with him and really clear about your value proposition, etc.
Makes sense. And speaking of value proposition, how do you make sure? Obviously, business developer apps are usually more complex to explain, because they do stuff that are not really common to the to everyone. So how do you make sure, and how do you test that value proposition to make sure that it rings a bell to the person you're referring to?
So you're right. It could be hard to explain, but it, I think, depends really on if you are focusing or not a specific niche or a specific type of people. It's a choice. Like we have made the choice to talk mainly to Node.js developers, and so we kind of assume that the people coming on our website today are developers, and they might need or not monitoring, but they are developers with some Node.js apps. Then it kind of shrinks the type of people that could come in. Obviously, if someone who is a marketer comes on our website, have never learned how to code, he wouldn't know it. He would not understand, and that's not a problem for me.
Okay.
So I think it's all about which segment of the people that are coming on a website you are targeting, and once you have defined that, you have to make sure that you are replying to the right with the right proposition to them. So it's all about the personas.
Yeah, absolutely. So this means that obviously that acquisition-wise, you will have to spot the right touch points, the right spaces you need to trigger in order to bring developers, non-JS developer, that is, to your website. Makes a lot of sense. All right, and so back to the sales, you have, as we said, a lot of different kind of developers, IT guys in large companies and so on and so forth. How, let's say I'm starting a new business to developer SaaS now. Should I target, all those guys at once? Should I narrow down to maybe that developer in a startup, the CTO maybe? I mean, is there like a rule that will, what's the best way to actually talk to developers when you're just starting out? Enterprise versus self-serve model, let's say.
So I would go just to make sure if I understand well the question, like what is if I'm starting today, to who should I sell the first?
Yeah, I mean there's a lot of variety of developers. So should I sell to large companies and target IT directors, or should I sell to CTO and startups? Should I say to developers, solo developers?
So I guess it's all first depending on your product. But sure. on my opinion, I guess it is if you're really bringing some value and you are bringing some value that are really actionable, etc., which is, I would say, our case, I would go directly to developers first, because it is something that if it becomes really settled and then trusted, it will be way natural to go up, I would say, in the chain. Exactly. And because the adoption is gonna be more large first, then to go and I think it's probably not the same way of addressing things, but and I know better this one because we have started that way. But I would say if you want to make a product that is only targeted to large companies, etc., it's probably because you, I would say, had an experience with these large companies and you know exactly what their pain points is, and you think that it's probably something that is more large, or there is, I would say, more organizational base, and it would probably help these enterprise level first. I think it's really hard if you haven't tried out. If you want to sell something really operational and really targeted to these guys, developers, and you start by the other side, that at some point you would have a problem because internally the adoption won't be good, and you won't have any I would say the next year you won't have.
We're just losing furnitures. We have to raise some cash.
So yeah, there probably won't be any. They won't come back the next year. Or the next
sure.
month.
I mean, if you're targeting enterprise companies, basically you have to convince from a top-down perspective, so typically directors, managers, C-levels to developers, which is really hard, I guess.
Definitely.
But if you go from developers, then you have this idea that any developer can become a champion at a certain point.
Right.
So
and if you are in an organization which is more and more the case, which people are massively technical, they would be able to understand the product on a technical wise and then make it, I would say, go up instead of making the product for C-levels and make it more organizational, and go it down, make it go down, and a developer might not understand the value because he cannot see it directly on his computer. And you might. This is the first point, and the second point is probably the time frame. If you are, you know that it's going to take time to sell to enterprise. It is likely that the time you have achieved to sell, the technology is probably not the same anymore.
Exactly. Yes.
So you better iterate more on the developer side and make sure that you become the reference in the company, in the enterprise, so that you can at least be sold sell to her, sell to it, and not and not going the other way.
Yeah. Speaking of iteration, let's talk about product. Right? It's not growing a SaaS business, business developer SaaS is not about growth only. So also about product, specifically if developers are supposed to be in love with the product plays a huge part in growing.
Right.
So I believe, that might be a preconceived idea, but I believe that when you run a business developer SaaS, maybe UI and user experience is not as important as obviously the core, the API, the tech. Is this something that you could confirm with Keymetrics, or it's like a 50-50 thing?
I think it depends on what's the usage of your product. Like it is true, if you have a 100% API based product and you do not have a user interface, for example, it is true. Like, yeah, you still have a product, but you probably might not have to think about, like my I don't know, my icon is that color. Like you might not have this problem, but still, if you have some usage that is on a visual standpoint, you might have to think about that. So yeah, it makes a difference. But you're right, the growth is really transversal on every. I mean, today, if you're thinking about the Keymetrics product, everyone is concerned by the growth because it's really product related, marketing related, and yeah.
You mentioned that everybody is concerned about growth. I guess that when you run also is that kind of business, everybody needs at some point to have like some kind of technical skill, right? I mean, for example, you were a developer before being head of growth. So is it the case, for example, for a customer success person, does that person has to be like an engineer?
I would say 100%, and it's the case of the person who is in charge about customer experience at Keymetrics. He needs to understand that, because I think you can only feel the pain if you were on the other side. So yeah, 100%. And I think this is still true at Keymetrics. I mean, all the people that are coming are technical, and that's, I think, part of the company culture, etc.
And I mean, there are a lot actually. I wouldn't give name, but there are actually big companies, big tech companies, that when you reach out to support, this is not a technical person, and you have a deeply technical problem each time, and it's really frustrating. And I think that really can turn your business around.
Right, and I think it's really this is really true. I think on the developer side, I mean, when you're selling to developers and when you're making a product for developers, because I would say developers are people that have learned to Google things first, so they will do it. And if they do not find the problem, they would go to support, which is the case of 80% of developers, I would say. And then, so they have frustration that is already there. So if they are coming to support, they are like totally frustrated. And then if they go on if they are being replied that, hey, thank you for your message. Can you, I will put your ticket to the second level support because your question is too technical.
Oh my God.
They will have a second level of frustration. And if they're still stick there, they will go on the second level support, which will ask them to give them more data to reproduce the problem. Okay, so, and basically you're creating frustration, and you could, I would say, easily kind of, like divide by two this frustration by, okay, first putting out content, documentation, etc. This is the first part. But let's say he's at support, is directly giving him someone who is technical, or make something to auto-categorize the problems or something like that on support level, so that, because you know that the people are coming to you are probably don't have a problem like, hey, I don't know where to click. Like I would say the level of the support is high by reference.
Okay. Does this mean that when you get a ticket, there is a higher churn risk than other SaaS?
I would say yes. I would say yes, because I mean, we'll talk about churn, but it's really depend on the product as well. But if you are offering a product that could be replaced, and where there is a lot of there is a lot of other players around, it could be a high churn risk because they would want to try something else.
But does this mean also, I mean, obviously another preconceived idea that I had, when running a business for developers, that it's a deeper product. It's all about technology backend, right? So obviously when people are integrating your solution, it's harder to go, right? I mean, for example, let's take Segment, for example. I would not take off Segment from our website or for the app, because otherwise I'm basically fucked. Right?
Yeah, right.
I have to reproduce Segment. And so the churn risk is really low. Is this the same? I mean, do you observe the same thing?
So I think that's more true for developer targeted product. So it is true that if you are making a product where the integration is a big part of the user onboarding, etc., and then when you're integrated, as you are serving a big thing on the other side, you might have a big pain to take it back, which is true for APIs, for API that are deeply integrated, etc. But if you have a product that is on the top of everything, which is, I would say, the case of monitoring, you might not be in this case. But there is a specific thing, which is with PM2, and I think it's really specificity. It's that PM2 is really deeply integrated. It means people, when they want to launch their application, they are launching it with PM2. So they're already halfway there, basically. So if they want to churn, they will still stay on PM2. And if they want to come at Keymetrics as a user or as a paying user, kind of they are already here. So it's I would say it's two levels of adoption, which is true for us. But let's say if you take any other monitoring solution or anything else that monitor your stuff, usually what you do is that you do not change what you have already, and you just put something that actually will monitor the stuff, and then you are good to go. So that means if you want to go out from this, you will just change this little meter. Yeah, it's just that. So if for us, it's not true.
Yeah. Okay. So you have basically to spot on which layer of deep you are in the product.
Yeah.
So the deeper you have, obviously, the lower the churn. But in the higher you are in the stack, it means that you have to bring more value to prove that you are essential.
Right. You took the example of Segment. Segment is literally the thing that will broadcast every data to all your different products. More than that, they are the source of what you pay more than them. So this is really deeply integrated. But at the same time, they are at this level, and they have this level of adoption now because they are really, really early in the adoption as well.
Yeah.
So means that you can, the usage of Segment will totally change the I would say the way you monitor your growth. So it's the same thing with us. Like you might be using PM2 for a while. This is why we are an exception with the monitoring thing. Same thing with APIs. If you are integrating if you're integrating an API, if you're integrating it from day one, it might be harder to go out from it.
Okay, so that's interesting. So the sooner you get your hand on a product, when you're running the business, the sooner you are basically the later you'll go. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. Makes a lot of sense. All right, we have 28 minutes. That's okay. Almost on mark for the 30 minutes. Maybe you can take some questions. I see there is some questions here. So Bill is asking, when a developer is key to implementation of a product but not the end user, do the same recommendations apply? Don't push them. Give them what they need to be autonomous. Okay. So basically, when you need to involve an engineer in the implementation, then does the same rule apply for recommendations?
So this will definitely. So if you're taking this only on a sales standpoint, this might be a key differentiator when you're winning the sale or not. The implementation time is a big part of it. Like, what is the time between the selling and the start will depend on the implementation time. So you need to give keys to developer to do it. If you take the part of Segment, the example of Segment, this is totally true. You need to insert something in your code of your website or your application to make it work, but it's not fulfilling a developer usage. Like developers are not the first user of Segment, but they are key to its integration. This is why if you go on Segment documentation, etc., they try to make understand to developers that, hey, it's easy. you just need this one line, you just need this one event, etc. And they kind of make it really easy for developer to understand. So yeah, it is key. It is key to make easy the developer experience of the tool that you are serving.
Yeah. So indirectly, the developer is involved, so he is going to be like a semi-champion typically for Segment, because the easier it is to implement, then the easier it will be to convince an engineer to implement your solution. So it's all about developer experience at the end.
Totally. If you take, for example, the the example of Twilio, which is a SMS API, and they have done a lot of work to beautify this kind of developer experience, because they know that the people that are going to integrate this thing are going to be developers.
Yeah.
But I mean, the SMS that you might be using with the application might nothing have to do. It might be for marketing, But the people that are integrating are developers, and they know that if they are doing a good job on kind of making these developer ambassadors, they know if they roll out a new version of Twilio API and they make it non-breaking, or they make it easy to upgrade, etc., it will totally make the life of the developer easy. So basically, the developer will be like, okay, someone who is asking internally of using Twilio, I would stay on it because I know that my job as a developer is easier. Yeah. So I would convince all my other partners and my other colleagues that I want to stay on this one.
Another good example, I think, is Clebit. Clebit is an API for enrichment. So typically you send them like an email, a professional email, and they get a lot of pull out some data on LinkedIn, from LinkedIn, Twitter, like job title and so on and so forth. What I think is great about the developer experience on Clebit is that they have those little bricks that you can implement right away. They have a Salesforce integration that is pre-made, Google Sheet integration pre-made. They have some routes that you can reuse, with a basic authentication. So it's really easy to use. And they already have a Segment integration. It's just something you have to click and boom, you have it integrated. So it's not, obviously you can go you can go really much further with Clebit, obviously. And typically this is what we do on Livestorm as well. But the fact that it is so easy at the beginning, that the first baby step are so easy for the developer, it makes the rest really easy.
Right. And in this case, where they're doing a lot with all these partnership programs or integrations, it's really interesting and really, really smart, because they know that the faster their users would see the value of it, the easier it's gonna get to sell them, basically.
Yeah.
They know that if someone can in only one click use their product, that's perfect. And if someone, if the organization can save the time of the developer, which is the case with all these integration, it's perfect, because developers won't need to be involved in this, and they will have the value, and that's awesome. Yeah. And I think it's the goal of any developed product it's the part of the onboarding, I would say.
Awesome. More questions. Cool. Which media are the greatest to reach developer? Twitter, Medium, Meetups. Yeah, we didn't talk about events, but events are, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's the right path to go when you're just starting out, but maybe later on when you have some kind of notoriety, right? But what would be the good channels?
So let's say let's take separately the offline one versus the online one. So let's start with the online one. So definitely developer are on Stack Overflow, are on GitHub, are on Twitter. Sure. It is, these are the places where you will find them. But keep in mind one thing, I would say this is the error, like we have all made as marketer for developers, is to treat them as any other users. They do not like, first thing, they don't like to be sold. So if you are going on a Stack Overflow question and saying like, hey, this is my product, try it out, you're probably just lowering your chances of making him try it out, or even though if he's trying out, you're sure that he's coming with a bad kind of point of view on you. So the smart way is to provide value. So and this is more and more true in any other industry. But if you're providing him value, like if there is a question on Stack Overflow, So first, if you are answering this question, make sure that you are really answering him and not doing some self-promotion. And then if you are answering him, you might answer it with your product, but make sure that you are not, like saying like, hey, this is the answer. By the way, you might want to try this, and etc. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
That's a good technique. That's a good advice for any kind of B2B marketing. For example, I mean, it's quite a, for example, we were doing this on Core. A lot of people are asking about web conferencing and webinar and so on and so forth. And a lot of questions, not that many answers, right? And we started answering, and just by doing that, people started coming to the website. And we were not overselling Livestorm, just giving some good answers. So I guess that applies too, right?
Yeah, this is definitely applying. So this is for the online part. For the offline one, it is true. You talked about like when should you go, do events, etc. I think it's a big debate, like on the developer communities as well. Like when should you be the one, sponsoring a conference or a meetup, creating your own meetup? This takes a lot of energy and a lot of money as well. So you need to make sure that you are like if for you spending $3,000 or $4,000 for a conference is gonna bring you some it's gonna have some ROI. Okay, if you're sure of it, okay. But if it's only on a marketing standpoint, make sure that you are mature enough on your marketing side to do it. Because if you're just doing conference events, etc., but you're not really measuring this, what you're doing, it's probably you're wasting your money. And as well, if you want to do just some branding, make sure you are at a level and you can also sponsor these 10 other conferences to make sure that you're really doing branding and not doing like one conference here or two conferences there.
So you have the walk to walk and talk to talk.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Okay, another question from Bill. Are testimonials from engineers as important as selling business to developer as they are selling to P2P? That's a good question.
I'm not sure to have an instance.
So typically, we have on our website testimonials from customers.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Does the same thing apply to developers? Is it as efficient for developers?
And I think this is really a personal opinion. I would say no, because I would value more as a developer. I would say an influencer, I would say, in the developer community who is tweeting about it, or who is just, let's say, have done an article about it or something like that, who it is coming really directly from him, vs like someone on a website with a code, hey, this is really cool, I'm the CTO of something. I would value this less, because I know as a developer that this might be bullshit, because this might be not exactly as true, or this might be a subcode. And really, if he's saying that it's cool, okay, I need to first be shown that it's really like how cool this is in terms of features, etc., etc. So I think this is a really personal opinion. Some people might think that it has some value if the CTO of something else saying yes or no.
It's funny. I think I had maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but maybe that looks like a lot of everyday life, cultural content that you consume, movies, books. I mean, you will only consume basically what other people recommend. You will not, if you get an email from a movie company asking for you to watch your movie, you're probably just gonna say, nah,
Right.
But when a friend recommends it, when someone you trust with their tastes, then probably you're gonna watch it. Probably you're gonna read that book. I think that the same thing goes with tech. You really need someone to influence you.
Yeah, and it's, I would say, a probably general rule and general marketing rule. Like if it's someone really close to you, you might want to give it a try. Yeah. So the whole game, obviously, this is the best case scenario. If you as a product, you're able to reach out to the best friend of someone who want to sell to, that's perfect, because he become your ambassador. He might want to try your product. But if you are on the other side where you need directly to convince him, you better really bring some value so that he can be hooked directly from you about your content, etc.
Makes sense. Cool. And last question here, how important is the open source in a B2D market strategy? That's a good one.
I would say for me it's key, but can you do it? I think it's really, I would say it's if you're a company and you're selling a proprietary product and you don't have open source, it's obviously way harder. But let's take the example of Mailjet, which is my previous company. So basically, Mailjet is a tool for people to send email, like the SendGrid, the Mailgun, and all that. And it is a paying tool. Like you have to pay to send a number of emails. Okay, but how do you make sure that developers then become hooked with that? So they have done something really smart. They have created MGML, which is the Mailjet markup language, and which is open source. So they kind of take part of Mailjet, open sourced it, and we're like, hey, this is the new thing for developers to code their emails. And this is totally free, and this is totally open source, and you might want to give it a try because today it's a total mess when you want to code emails. And this is really smart. People were like, oh, awesome, like, wow, I didn't know that, and I want to try it. And then when they are using this enough, they will be like, oh, I might want to check out who is behind this. Or if I'm using MGML, I might just want to go a step higher. What do I do? And they might go to Mailjet. And this is exactly what happens with, let's say, Product Hunt, which is one of their clients. We'll be like, oh, Product Hunt is using MGML. They want to go more with it, because if they are hooked by a product which is totally free, can you imagine what they can do if you pay them?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is totally the way you want to market this.
So that requires a lot of, but the downside of that is it requires a lot of time, dedication.
Right.
Obviously, you have an already existing tech stack that's supports to actually open source part of it.
Right.
For example, I think we have common friends in the room, Strappy.
Right.
And those guys have this Node.js framework, right? It's a Node.js framework, right? It's open source, right? And they spend a lot of time building their communities, right?
Yeah, and I was actually talking with Pierre, which is the founder, and I was actually looking at their Slack, for example. So they have a Slack. They make sure to have enough people on their Slack to talk to them, to make them inform when there is a new update coming, etc. I think it's really important to build your community, and if you're doing something open source, it's just build trust over time. It is a long-term process, but when you're giving value and someone is using it, you are in a better position to make them pay than like I'm out of nowhere and I'm not giving enough value.
Again, it's all about trust, and having an open source thing is really a great way to build trust.
Right.
And do you have like an internal team that take care of basically all the open source part of PM2?
I think it's I would say so. Today it's kind of everyone. Like everyone is monitoring the number of stars of PM2. Everyone is monitoring like the problems that we have, because everyone is kind of a user of PM2. But it is true, like we have someone who is going through the issues of PM2. We have someone, let's say, who is when there is a new update, who's doing that. I think the CEO is really involved because he's first the author of PM2, so it's still his kind of baby. So he. Whenever there is a problem or a new update, he does it. So I think it's awesome. He's also the gatekeeper. When you receive a lot of pull requests, you receive a lot of problems. People want to bring PM2, which is an open source product, and it belongs to everyone in a certain way. And I think it's him who is doing a lot of this work as well.
So at this point, it's really like a culture thing, right?
Right. Totally. And all the new features coming, etc., all the new ideas that we have like might be implemented of PM2 by the help of the community, etc.
Okay, great. Awesome. If not more questions, maybe you can call it a day. All right, so guys, thank you all for coming. Thank you for all the questions. So what we're going to do, basically, we are going to post a blog post about this, edit the videos. You will have a replay. You will have a short version of this podcast, probably even an audio version of this podcast. So feel free to follow us on our YouTube channel, Livestorm app, attached. Where can we find you?
Let's say on Twitter, Shubs,
Yeah.
so SHU_S, and otherwise you can go on pm2.io or Keymetrics.io.
Awesome. Noted. All right. Thank you guys, and see you next month then.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye.
I'm gonna close this.